Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you going today? Hope you had a good night's rest. Today we're going to start a new chapter. We're going to look at chapter 4, which is fractions. So hopefully this is not the first time you've seen fractions because you would have done some fractions in primary school. So today's lesson is about an introduction to fractions, which a lot of it should be revision or reminders from primary school. And then we'll move on to do a few more year 7 content with fractions, like adding fractions, subtracting fractions. So today's title is Introduction to Fractions. So writing that down, Introduction to Fractions. So the word fraction, so I'll write this in green because it's just fun facts. The English word fraction actually comes from a Latin word. So the origins of fraction came from the Latin word spelled Frangre. I'm not sure how to pronounce it because I don't know how to speak Latin. I'm guessing frangere, maybe. So the word fraction comes from this Latin word frangere, which actually means to break into pieces. So the idea of a fraction is you're splitting an object into smaller pieces. So let's think of a scenario. Suppose you have a pizza. So you have one whole pizza all to yourself, one big piece of pizza. And then you decide to be nice. You decide to split the piece of pizza in half. So you grab a knife and you cut that pizza in half, and then you take one piece of the two pieces in total. So now you have two pieces of pizza, and you cut it in half. And you take half a pizza, so you leave the other half of the pizza for your friend. So you have half a pizza. Or if you end up having more friends, you decide to, you draw the same shape again, you decide to cut the piece of pizza into quarters, into 4 slices, and then you take one of the slices yourself, so you have a quarter of a pizza. So you should be familiar with these words: one whole pizza, one half of a pizza, one quarter of a pizza. The more slices you cut your pizza, the smaller your slice is. A quarter of a pizza. So how do we represent in numbers a whole pizza, a half pizza, or a quarter of a pizza? So if we have one whole pizza, we have one slice, like one whole slice, right? If you had half a pizza, you now have 2 slices because you cut your pizza in half, and then you take one slice out of the 2 pieces. So this is how we write a fraction. So we say that this is 1 out of 2. So you can read that as 1 out of 2 or 1/2, right? As if you're talking about half a pizza. So it's out of 2 because in total you have 2 slices and you take 1 out of the 2 slices. If you had a quarter of a pizza, you would take 1 slice out of 4 total slices of pizza. So that's 1/4 of a pizza that you have. So this number, which we write 1 horizontal line 2, is a fraction. So the number on top is called a numerator. So that's the number on top. Whereas this number on the bottom is called a denominator. So that's the number on the bottom. And then this horizontal line in the middle, splitting the top and the bottom, is called a vinculum. So it's a horizontal line across. So the numerator, the number on top, is really how many pieces you have, whereas the denominator is the total number of parts that you have, right? So for example, if you're talking about 1/4 of a pizza, in total we had 4 slices of pizza because we cut it up into 4 slices, and then you took 1 slice out of the 4 slices. So the denominator was the total divided parts, whereas the numerator is how many parts you actually have. So number of parts that you have. And the vinculum is really talking about divided into, because it's one piece into two, or one out of the two pieces. So vinculum is more talking about divided into. So some other key things to note. I like to write fractions with one horizontal line, or let me rephrase that. I like to write fractions where you have a numerator and a flat horizontal line over the denominator. I don't like fractions where you write a slash. So 5, flat line, horizontal line, not that. So 5 over 6 is good. 5/6 is not good. Just my little personal preference. The other thing to take note of, that 1/2, or whenever you write fractions, the vinculum is the same as divided. It's like a division, because it's 1 out of the 2 pieces of pizza that you have, or 1 divided by 2, because you cut your pizza in half, now you have 2 slices. So you can think of fractions as dividing numbers. So 5/6 is 5 divided by 6 as well. So when you think of fractions, you can also think of it's the same as dividing numbers. Now, there's some other terminology I would like you to remember. So first word is, what is a proper fraction? So the word proper means that the numerator, so the number on top, is smaller than the number on the bottom. So don't forget, this sign means smaller than. So for example, 2/3 or 2/3 or 2 out of 3 would be a proper fraction, because the number on top, 2, is less than, smaller than the number on the bottom, which is 3. Another example of a proper fraction would be 7 out of 50, because the top number, 7, is smaller than 50. The other thing to take note of for proper fractions is that proper fractions are always less than 1 whole. So proper fractions are always less than 1 whole amount, because the top number is always smaller than the bottom number. And the bottom number is the total number of slices, total number of parts that you have. The next word I would like to talk about is the improper fraction. So improper fraction. So that is when your numerator, so the number on top, is bigger than the number on the bottom. So don't forget about this inequality sign, or the alligator mouth. This means bigger than. So for example, 10 out of 3, 10/3 is an improper fraction, because the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. Or if you decide to have 20/4, no, that's not good, 20/6, the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. Improper fractions, because the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom, it is more than 1 whole. Because really, if you consider 10/3, right, it's saying that you have pizzas that's been cut into 3 slices, and you have 10 of these. So you have 1 slice, 2 slice, 3 slice, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1/3 of a slice, 10, right? So that you really have more than 1 whole pizza. So you have multiple pizzas. So improper fractions are when the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. One more word is called a mixed number. And that is when you have a mixture of whole numbers and fractions. So, it's a mixture of wholes and fraction parts. So, for example, 1 1/4. So if you imagine talking about the pizzas, you have one whole pizza and then you have a quarter slice of a pizza. So it's a mixed number because you have a whole number in front, which is the 1, and then you have a fraction part as well. So mixed number is when you have whole numbers as well as fraction parts. Or for example, you can have 2 2/3, 2 whole pizzas and then 2 out of the 3 slices of the third pizza. So you have a mixture of whole pizzas and mixture of fraction parts of a pizza. Now, in terms of a number line, what would it look like? So on a number line, so say we drew a number line. So you're hopefully using a straight edge tool because it's a straight line. So draw a beautiful straight line. You draw 2 arrows on either end to indicate the number line goes on forever, because numbers you can keep counting on forever. Let's think about numbers from 0 to 2, just because it's easy to think about it. So you think about numbers between 0 to 2. If I cut 0 to 2 in half, so say I have a 2 meter long piece of string. If I cut that in half, so I chop it in half, I get a 1 meter piece of string, right? So half of 0 to 2 is 1, so halfway I get 1. If I decide to chop a 1 meter piece of string in half, I get half a meter. So you get the fraction 1/2 because you have 2 pieces of string in total, and then that's half of it. If you then decide to chop 0 to half into half again, you get a quarter. So, and then if you decide to chop the distance between half and 1 into half again, you get 3/4. And that's because if you consider the amount between 0 and 1, you have 1 slice, 2 slice, 3 slice, 4 slices, or gaps, right? So you have 4 gaps or sections in total. So every section is a quarter because you have 1 out of the 4 pieces. So the first section would be 1/4. Technically, this is 2 out of the 4 sections because you have moved 1 section and 2 section. So 2/4 is technically the same as 1/2. And then you have 3/4. And then after 3/4, you have 4/4, right? If you have 4 slices of pizza, they combine to be 1 whole pizza. So you can have that slicing. And then if you keep slicing everything into quarters, so let's slice between 1 and 2.5, then cut that in half again, and then cut that in half. So then after 4 quarters, you get 5/4. And then you get 6/4, and then you get 7/4. And technically 2 is 8/4 because you now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces together. You have 8/4 of string. Technically, the number between 1 and half is 1.5, right? So technically, 6/4 is the same as the mixed number 1.5 because you have 1 whole piece of string and you have 1, 2 out of the 4 sections, or 1 out of the half section there. So the number of sections you have between 0 and 1, the whole numbers, is the denominator. So we can make a note that there. So the number of sections between 0 and 1 is the denominator, because that's literally how many parts you've chopped your piece of string up into. So in one piece of string, 0 to 1, I've chopped it up into 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So my denominators are 4 or quarters. And then depending how many pieces you have in total, that's the numerator on top. So 1 piece out of 4 is 1/4, 2 pieces out of 4 is 2 quarters, etc., etc.